Every effect that you add in your cranky, you add lots of people. It's a very labor-intensive art, this cranky business. So I'm joined by my wife Jenny, who's cranking today. She's the cranker. And then Charlie and Charmaine will have their hands on almost all things cranky. We'll be doing puppetry and lighting. I'll be doing some narration and fiddle. So the crankies that you heard are a pretty old art form of storytelling. And they're often used as a result to tell old stories. But the story I'm going to tell you tonight is not very old at all. In fact, it's only about 2 years old. And it happened as a result of, well, actually, Charmaine and I and our friend Gabe Strand.
True story.
True story. It's almost entirely true what you're about to see up here. We're invited up to play at Lopez Island at a square dance that Kelsey Nelson organizes once a month. And you'll see Kelsey performing here in a little bit. And it was in January. Charmaine and I decided to drive, but Gabe, being a Northwest outdoorsy fellow, wanted to make an adventure out of it. So he decided he was going to ride his bike all the way up with the island until he got to the port, take the ferry over, and he'd camp along the way somewhere. He'd leave a day earlier. So Gabe did that. The next day, Charmaine and I drove up together. We got to Lopez, and as we were motoring around, we overtook this lone cyclist laboring up a hill on the island. And it was Gabe. So we pulled over, and we loaded him and all of his stuff into Charmaine's van. And he looked tired. And he looked a little wild-eyed. And as he settled into the back seat, he told us this story. And for this cranky, the lower the lights, the better. This one enjoys darkness. So, go ahead. So, I'm proud to present one of the many outdoorsy misadventures of Gabe Strand, episode 17, In the Dark, at Deception Pass. So, this is Gabe. And on January 2nd of a recent year, Gabe was engaged to play a square dance up on Lopez Island, one of the San Juan Islands, the jewels of the Pacific Northwest. Gabe decided to make an adventure of it. So on January 1st, he embarked to ride his bike from Seattle, the length of Whidbey Island, and camp out at Deception Pass State Park, the north end of Whidbey, before then making his way to Anacortes and from there to Lopez. So Gabe had his bike and gear all arranged. January 1st dawned cold but clear, and he headed out his door, bound for Whidbey Island, Deception Pass State Park, and all points north. You've already guessed it. The campground was closed. Now, the way was barred by a locked gate. Now, Gabe had ridden a long way. He had many adventures. And there was no close alternative. And there wasn't much daylight left. So, Gabe slipped past the locked gate and into the campground. Deception Pass campground is huge, some 250 sites. All of them were empty. Gabe was alone. So he picked a site amongst the tall trees, and in the gathering darkness, by the light of a small electric lantern, Gabe cooked his dinner and ate it. Complete darkness gripped the park. And exhausted from his exertions, Gabe crawled underneath his tarp and into his sleeping bag. And there, exhausted in his bag, he turned out the light. A scream had come out of the night, suddenly and worryingly close. Gabe was petrified in his sleeping bag. He dare not make a move, lest he attract the attention of whatever it was that had made that noise. But what had made that noise? Gabe's mind raced. Could it have been a rabbit? Gabe knew that rabbits sometimes screeched, but this sounded a lot larger than a rabbit. What about a bobcat? Did bobcats even live on Whidbey Island? Is that a thing? Maybe it was an owl. There were screech owls, right? Owls screeched? Was that a screech he had heard? It felt more like a scream. Maybe it wasn't an owl. Maybe it was something else entirely. Sasquatch. An angry Sasquatch. Or maybe a lonely Sasquatch. Gabe didn't know what an angry or lonely Sasquatch sounded like. And his thoughts turned darker. It could be something worse. A crazed woodsman creeping through the dark, fingering his axe, even now getting closer. Gabe listened intently to the darkness. Now, in this time of ours, with a Wikipedia in every pocket, it seems like answers should come easily to the questions that we have. But there are times when there aren't answers to all of your questions. There are times when we are left, in fact, in the dark. Gabe heard nothing. And so, he closed his eyes, tried to fall back to sleep. There, in the dark, at Deception Pass.